Hello, welcome to VinSchool's training video about unpacking the curriculum, a part of the Faculty Meetings video training series. In the previous video, we have explored the important elements of an effective faculty meeting. This is the second in a line of 4 videos covering the first important topic for faculty meetings at VinSchool, namely unpacking the curriculum. This video is divided into 5 parts corresponding to different learning objectives. After watching part 1, definition of curriculum unpacking, you will be able to clearly differentiate components of a curriculum and also define the concept of curriculum unpacking. After watching part 2, the significance of curriculum unpacking, you will be able to explain the role of curriculum unpacking in implementing and managing a curriculum. After watching part 3, some common methods of unpacking the curriculum, you will become familiar with the similarity and differences in the different models of curriculum unpacking from Posner, J. Jensen, and V.J. Reddy. After watching part 4, the requirements of curriculum unpacking, you'll be able to determine the different issues to be analyzed and solved in each step of the curriculum unpacking process. Lastly, the final part, unpacking and repacking, will highlight the differences between unpacking and resynthesizing a curriculum before putting it into practical teaching. We will begin the video with exploring the concept of curriculum unpacking. To understand what curriculum unpacking is, let's recall the different components of a curriculum. There are a lot of different methods to break a curriculum down into separate components, and in the scope of this video, the academic department will outline a body of research from Dr. George J. Posner of Cornell University. According to Dr. Posner of Cornell University, most curricula will have 7 common elements. First of all, a course of study is a series of courses that a student needs to complete. Second, content knowledge is a list of topics, phenomena, concepts, theories, facts, and data that will be covered in the student's learning process. Third, standards are concise statements of specific competencies students are expected to achieve after a certain period of study, normally a standard school year. Fourth, sequence and scope are specific arrangements of content knowledge and standards into a cohesive network, clearly showing which knowledge and skills will be learned in which grade, how they have been developed compared to the previous and subsequent grades, and ensuring what students are supposed to learn in each grade is appropriate to their stage of development. Fifth, a syllabus is a teaching and learning plan that specifies when students are supposed to learn what and when they are to be assessed. Typically, a syllabus will be divided into milestones and lessons corresponding to each learning period. Sixth, instructional resources include all materials that guide students and teachers during the course of study. This can be textbooks, workbooks, teachers' books, or any material displayed on the mapping software. The last component is planned experiences. These are programs that are conducted outside of formal classroom hours, but have an equally vital contribution to the development of students' understanding and competence. At VinSchool, all these factors have been systematized into the CX, a detailed teaching and assessment plan for each grade and each subject in any particular school year. The CX represents an arrangement of content knowledge on a specific time frame, as well as the distribution of standards into the teaching content of each unit and lesson. At the same time, the CX also stipulates very clearly when assessment will occur. These 3 elements, standards, teaching process, and assessments, have a close interactive relationship, strongly influencing each other. Each unit and lesson of the CX also includes all the necessary content knowledge elements, unit outcomes, lesson objectives, as well as resources. In addition to the 6 elements of course of study, content knowledge, standards, sequence and scope, syllabus, and instructional resources specified on mapping software, it is also necessary to include extracurriculars in the school's long-term educational plan with appropriate activities and experiences to develop knowledge and skills for students on picnics, events, or after-school clubs. Thus, VinSchool CX has been strictly implemented, realizing the elements of a curriculum. How then will we unpack a curriculum with so many different elements? In a research article, Dr. Michael B. Kaapay of Mindanao State University advocates that curriculum unpacking is the bridge between a curriculum in the form of a written plan and a curriculum that is effectively implemented in teaching practices. Dr. Posner's definition of curriculum unpacking sees things from a different perspective. According to him, curriculum unpacking means to dissect a large curriculum into smaller elements and evaluating each of these elements against the purpose and educational philosophy of that curriculum. At Vince School, curriculum unpacking is understood as the process of adopting, adapting, and applying the CX frameworks that the academic department has distributed to each school. Regardless of the definition, we can see that the curriculum unpacking is the process of deeply understanding a curriculum in order to successfully translate that curriculum into practical classroom implementation. In the second part of this video, we will delve into the significance of curriculum unpacking, as it plays an important role in both curriculum implementation and curriculum management. First of all, for the implementation of a curriculum, curriculum unpacking helps to ensure that the permanent components of the curriculum are consistently implemented among different teachers and different classrooms. These permanent components of a curriculum are its essential and necessary parts, chiefly contributing to the formation of students' competencies, and thus are components that teachers must not arbitrarily make changes to. Such permanent components include the curriculum standards, specific approaches, and philosophies. Furthermore, unpacking a curriculum also helps to ensure that the curriculum is taught properly. The concepts of content knowledge or unit outcomes and lesson objectives, although displayed on mapping software or distributed by the academic department, are often expressed in a condensed, summarized form. Therefore, internal discussion within each academic faculty is necessary in order for all teachers to reach an agreement on specific understandings of content knowledge and analyze the requirements in each unit and lesson objective. This is especially important when it comes to delivering new content knowledge or receiving unfamiliar unit outcomes and lesson objectives if teachers are to correctly implement the curriculum's direction. Third, unpacking a curriculum will also prepare for the process of continuing professional development. Only through learning about the requirements of a curriculum, from a broad overview to the specifics of each unit and lesson, can teachers discover the gap between the professional competency and the requirements of the curriculum. Not only that, in-depth analysis of the program also helps faculties to detect the gap between theories and practices in implementing a curriculum in order to make appropriate adjustments according to the condition and competency of teachers of a particular school. Finally, curriculum unpacking is also a process to help teachers master the curriculum, allowing them to know how to adhere to the permanent components and to be flexible with adjustable components, thus offering adequate differentiation and diversification in their teaching to suit the needs of each student. Second, curriculum unpacking also plays a very important role in the school's curriculum management process. With regards to this, when curriculum unpacking is properly carried out, the school's management and subject leaders will be in a position to better control professional teaching performance at their campuses in the following aspects. First, proper differentiation between the permanent and adjustable components of a curriculum can allow proper oversight into teachers' instructional processes regarding both components. Second, understanding the curriculum implementation roadmap as well as important milestones can facilitate better control in the progress of curriculum implementation at the school and help the school properly prepare for each important stage. Third, understanding how the school's practical implementation of the curriculum differs from the system's framework can help assess the effectiveness of these adjustments. Fourth, through the analysis of the curriculum, the school's management and subject leaders can determine where teachers' weaknesses are, which are the contents that need immediate training and long-term training, so that there is sufficient information to plan for teacher training and support in implementing the curriculum. Lastly, curriculum unpacking will help the school's management and subject leaders to know which method of formative and summative assessment is appropriate for each subject, so as to develop corresponding assessment plans. This will be further elaborated in the fourth video of this series. In the third part of this video, we will learn some methods of curriculum unpacking. The first method we would like to introduce to you is one developed by Dr. Posner in his book, Analyzing the Curriculum. There, he presents 4 steps to chronological curriculum analysis. Step 1. Understanding the curriculum's documentation, origin, and design process. Step 2. Explaining the relevancy of the curriculum. Step 3. Explaining the methods of implementing the curriculum. And Step 4. Summarizing the results to evaluate the overall advantages and disadvantages of the curriculum. In this model, Dr. Posner poses a number of essential questions in sequence, such as, how is the curriculum built? What is the context of development for the curriculum? What philosophy does the curriculum represent? What is the purpose and content of the curriculum? How is the curriculum structured? How is the curriculum implemented, and what are the requirements in terms of time, personnel, economy, policy, etc.? What lessons can teachers learn after unpacking the curriculum? What are the strengths and weaknesses of the current curriculum? And if the curriculum is put into practice, what plans do teachers have to maximize its strengths and minimize its weaknesses? If Dr. Posner's model unpacks the curriculum on a chronological order of curriculum implementation, 2 educators, Jonathan Jansen and Vijay Reddy, propose methods to unpack a curriculum according to its different aspects. The first is to interpret the impact, to evaluate the curriculum in relation to relevant stakeholders, such as students, parents, and teachers, to measure the impact of the curriculum on them. The essential question of this method of unpacking is, what is the impact of the curriculum? More specifically, do teachers love this curriculum and why? What changes has the curriculum made for students? To answer these questions, teachers need to have different ways of collecting information, such as observational interviews or research projects over a long period of time to obtain accurate measurement based on specific data. The second is to explain the design, to evaluate the relationships between the components in the curriculum to see if these factors are consistent with the educational perspectives of the curriculum. The essential questions are, what philosophies, views, educational principles, standards, and assumptions does the curriculum represent? How have these been realized as elements of the curriculum? The third is to examine relevant educational policies, to evaluate the curriculum in relation to external factors such as public policy, educational policy, to find out if the curriculum is consistent with the general requirements and policies of the Ministry of Education and Training. Whether in Posner's chronological method or Jansen and Reddy's aspects method, we can easily see that the essence of curriculum unpacking is still to deconstruct a large curriculum into many smaller components, then carefully consider each element in these components to properly and deeply understand the content of each element before implementing it in teaching practices. In part 4 of this video, we will focus on exploring some specific requirements when unpacking a curriculum. The process of curriculum unpacking can be summarized into 3 main stages: adopt, adapt, and apply. In each of these stages, there are essential questions that can guide our progress. We have to note that these questions are suggestions for the process of unpacking the curriculum and are neither binding nor limiting. Depending on the actual conditions of our school, we can develop additional questions or adjust these questions so that their utilization is deeper and more relevant to the conditions on the ground. In the scope of this video, the academic department does not specify a fixed method of curriculum unpacking, so that each school will have the flexibility to carry out different methods of curriculum unpacking as long as the essential questions are answered. Now we come to the first stage, adopting the curriculum. The curriculum is the foundation for the teaching and learning process. Whether a school uses a prepackaged curriculum like Cambridge's or starts a new one, there's still a lot of work to be done. The school's professional team needs to focus on analyzing and understanding 3 main aspects: the structure of the curriculum, the main components of the curriculum, and the tensions between the ideal and reality. At the same time, we also need to link these 3 aspects with currently employed teaching methods, the school's culture, and the characteristics of students. Section 4.1.1, Unpacking Curriculum Structure. When interpreting the structure of a curriculum, we need to be able to answer essential questions such as how has the structure of the new curriculum changed compared to the curriculum that we are teaching? The structure of a curriculum is not just limited to how the overall curriculum is distributed into individual units and lessons, but also includes the teaching approach. For example, a subject might have previously been taught in only theoretical lessons, but when switching to a new curriculum, the structure of the unit has been interwoven between theoretical lessons and project implementation exercises. This is a major change in the structure of the curriculum. What positive effects are these changes expected to have on the teaching process? What do we need to prepare to be able to familiarize ourselves with and effectively take advantage of these changes? This analysis of a curriculum structure will help teachers have an overall view of the curriculum and focus on delving more deeply into the curriculum's new components in comparison to their actual experience. Section 4.1.2 Unpacking the main components of a curriculum. When unpacking the main components of a curriculum, teachers need to be able to answer essential questions such as, what are the important parts of the curriculum? How do these components interact with each other? Which components are permanent, cannot be changed, and require consistency among all grades and teachers? Which components are adjustable, allowing teachers to customize or adjust based on the specifics of their classes? We must also note that the permanent components are often those that are crucial to the achievement of the curriculum's goals, while the adjustable components are often those that have a negligible impact on students' outcome and are often related more to the student's learning experience. The fact that teachers can clearly differentiate between permanent components and adjustable components is a basic requirement that balances the quality of program implementation and the freedom and creativity of teachers. Section 4.1.3 Understanding the tensions between the ideal and reality. We need to note that almost every written program is done so under the assumption of ideal conditions, like students fully comprehending all the content taught in class. However, in reality, each school, class, or each group of students and each group of teachers will have its own characteristics. Identifying the gap between ideal and reality is of critical importance if teachers are to deepen their understanding and begin to make adjustments to the program. Curriculum unpacking at this step should help teachers answer the following questions. To teach and study this curriculum, what knowledge and skills do teachers and students need? In fact, do teachers and students have these foundational knowledge and skills? To implement this curriculum, the school needs to ensure what conditions of facilities, policies, procedures, etc. are met. Is the curriculum consistent with the educational perspective and mindset of the school, teachers, and students? What groups of stakeholders may disagree with the curriculum? In case there are tensions between the ideal and reality as above, what preparation and additional factors are needed to implement the curriculum? We need to note that the interpretation of these tensions is essential to ensure that teachers and students have a proper foundation to approach the curriculum, as well as to timely detect deficiencies to supplement and avoid causing problems like students being put in the wrong level or teachers incorrectly teaching the curriculum. Ideally, teachers would organize professional development sessions before the school year begins to give them time to work through these steps carefully and ensure all teachers are professionally ready to head into the new year. At the same time, this activity needs to be continuously carried out throughout the school year to timely detect and handle any problem that might arise. After the first stage comes the second stage, adapt. Even the best curriculum is not immediately usable and suitable for all educational conditions. For curriculum to be highly effective, it must be tailored to meet the needs of students, teachers, and schools. Teachers at a school need to consider all factors, such as students' needs and abilities, style, personality, and competency of teachers, cultural characteristics, mission, vision, and facilities of the school, and then accordingly adjust and adapt the following 4 factors in the curriculum if necessary and in a reasonably convincing manner. First is to make adjustments to content knowledge and skills. We must consider that almost every curriculum assumes that all students have an equal share of knowledge and skills in a classroom. In practice, this is rarely the case, and this requires teachers to adjust their content knowledge and skills to suit their particular students. We need to note that adjustments made to content knowledge and skills for a grade are macro decisions that need to be researched properly in order to avoid misunderstandings and feelings detrimentally affecting our decisions. Any such adjustment must also be approved by the company's leaders. The essential questions in this step are: what are the unique characteristics of students of the school or class that are different from other schools and classes? How do these influences affect the students' response to the curriculum's needs? Are the curriculum's knowledge and skills too difficult for some students of the school or class? And what do teachers need to do to provide additional knowledge and skills to these students? Are the curriculum's knowledge and skills too easy for some students of the school or class? And what do teachers need to do to provide more challenging knowledge and skills to these students? Will changes in knowledge and skills for students of schools and classes lead to any overall changes in the program standards? How will those changes be communicated to the company's leaders, parents, and students? And what are the effects of this adjustment on student learning and the later stages of learning, and what are the solutions? Usually, changes in content knowledge and skills take place at the micro level, meaning that each school will make small adjustments in the system of units and lessons, but we still need to ensure that all the standards of a course are met. After adjusting content knowledge and skills, teachers need to make adjustments to the timing. Some of the essential questions at this stage are: based on the characteristics and initial competency of students, is the proposed time on the CX to complete the curriculum reasonable? Time can be understood as the total time spent on the entirety of a course or the time spent on each unit and each lesson. If some students can complete the curriculum faster than the suggested time, what additional sections or activities should be added to fill the extra time? If some students need to take longer than the suggested time to complete the curriculum, we need to decide which part of the curriculum to choose and which to skip. We need to note that there will not be any general formula for the process of making adjustments in time in particular and adjusting other parts in general. Teachers need to observe and evaluate their specific students and have an appropriate estimate to make timely decisions. Next is to make adjustments to the teaching approaches. On the mapping software, there may be some suggestions on which approach teachers can take. However, no single program can anticipate the wide variety of students' special needs, such as different language levels, personalities, interests, cultural backgrounds, or values. Therefore, teachers are still the ones who ultimately decide which method is suitable for their classes. Some of the essential questions for teachers to keep in mind are: what are the specific approaches to this curriculum? How are these approaches different from the traditional approaches that teachers have been implementing? If the curriculum has been implemented, what approaches have been found to be most effective? Which approaches do we choose, and how should it be adjusted to suit all students in the school or class? To be able to understand the curriculum's approaches, teachers should apply it to the implementation of a unit of knowledge or skill in the lesson, avoiding making assumptions or stopping at the level of general understanding of the course. Last is adjustments made to assessment method. We need to note that assessment is a factor that has a strong relationship with teaching and standards. Teachers need to plan in advance the content related to assessment to measure the effectiveness of the teaching process and the ability of students to meet standards. Some of the essential questions for teachers are: what assessment methods are available, and what are the key assessment milestones for the curriculum? What are the advantages and disadvantages of the curriculum's assessment methods? How are these methods different from traditional assessment methods that teachers have been implementing? Which assessment methods are most suitable for students of the school or class? What do teachers and students need to prepare to effectively implement these assessment activities? And what is the gap between the school's assessment and the major forms of independent assessments? How can schools close this gap? Video 4 will provide teachers with detailed information about student assessment. Stage 3, apply, is the final step of the curriculum unpacking process. After carefully adopting and adapting the program, teachers will put the adapted program into practice. When implementing the program, the first thing teachers need to pay attention to is breaking down the program into a system of units, lessons, and assessments. This means that teachers need to agree with each other on the long-term plan and the short-term plan of the faculty. Long-term plans usually last for a few weeks, a month, or a semester, while short-term plans often last for a few periods. These long-term and short-term plans are the delivery of the overall curriculum and the teaching plans that teachers are working on at any moment. Faculties need to agree on what to teach, how to teach, which method to deliver lessons with, and what tools and resources to employ in both long-term and short-term plans. At the same time, teachers also need to discuss and come to an agreement on how the unit outcomes and lesson objectives are correctly understood according to the requirements of the curriculum. We need to note that the format for presenting these long-term and short-term plans is up to the school. Although the mapping software has suggested unit outcomes and lesson objectives, in order to really master them, we need to be able to answer the following questions. How are the units of knowledge in the learning objective limited? And how can skills and learning objectives be formed? Each unit of knowledge and skill will have many different interpretations among different teachers. Therefore, it is necessary to find a common understanding in accordance with the requirements of the standards. What are the appropriate application contexts for the curriculum's knowledge and skills? The knowledge and skills should not be taught through theory, but through different types of learning activities, and exercises. Therefore, teachers need to determine where and how these knowledge and skills of students are applied. What difficulties or misunderstandings may arise in the process of developing learning objectives and how to correct them? How do the competencies set out in the learning objectives contribute to the formation of the competencies set out in the standards? We need to note that it is necessary to align the objectives of the lesson with the long-term goals of the curriculum. Not understanding this connection can easily lead to teaching being too shallow or too deep compared to the requirements of the standards. We would like to introduce the inside-out method as a suggestion to help teachers unpack unit outcomes and lesson objectives. In this inside-out method, we will in turn explore the knowledge students need to be equipped with, the skills students need to achieve, the expectations of student achievement expressed through in the wordings of unit outcomes and lesson objectives. From there, we will convert this information into essential questions and organize activities in their lesson plans. We would like to remind you once again that all presentation forms we have provided here are suggestions only. Teachers, depending on the teaching style as well as the characteristics of the facility, can screen, adjust, and selectively apply them in practice. Let's take a look at an example from the Vietnamese literature curriculum, assuming that one objective is to write an argumentative paragraph that is relevant to the lesson using appropriate reasoning and diverse and relevant evidence. To gain deeper understanding about the objective of this lesson, first of all, we should pay attention to nouns like argument, reasoning, and evidence. Through these nouns, we will learn that the effectiveness of an argument will depend on the variety and quality of the evidences and how they relate to each other. Once we understand this, we will be able to formulate essential questions for this lesson, such as, what elements does a persuasive argument consist of? What evidence and arguments can be used for this argument? What is the best evidence? And how can students organize their arguments effectively? Second, through the verbs in the lesson objectives, such as write and use, we know that in the long term, our students will need to create persuasive argumentative texts to suit specific situations. This is also the competency requirement of the standard to which this lesson is contributing. From there, teachers will design a series of different activities to help students have the opportunity to practice this competency. It can be writing exercises to demonstrate, an exercise that asks students to come up with and express personal opinions, or an analysis exercise. All of these opportunities help students practice argumentative skills using reasonings and evidence. Finally, through the adjectives in the lesson objective sentence, such as appropriate, diverse, and related, teachers will actualize the level of completion of students' exercises with specific requirements such as the arguments and evidence are focused on clarifying the main issue in the article, and the essay employs 2 or more evidences and involves many different aspects. The breaking down of a lesson objective into smaller components according to the inside-out method is a suggestion to help teachers unpack lesson objectives and actualize them in their teaching practice. After breaking down the curriculum into unit outcomes and lesson objectives, we also encourage teachers to have regular reflection on the curriculum. Some of the questions that are essential to the contemplation process are: what is the purpose of contemplation? What should we think critically about? What are the appropriate forms of reflection? And what is an improvement plan based on the lessons learned from the reflection process? We need to note that reflection here is not only a one-time assessment after the end of the course, but is a regularly held throughout the teaching process and can focus on many different aspects such as quality of the curriculum, quality of the teacher's instruction, and degree of student engagement. We should also consider critical reflection, contemplation based on concrete data and evidence, contemplation with an honest attitude to clearly identify weaknesses and think of ways to improve. The final step in the process of unpacking a curriculum is to make further revision if necessary. Any curriculum is like a living organism that needs to be constantly modified to meet the needs of students in a rapidly changing world. We can revise a curriculum throughout the year or take time at the end of the year to review the entire curriculum. Some of the essential questions for the adjustment process are: what are the proposed revisions to the curriculum? Are these proposed modifications appropriate for mass adoption? What are the revisions that require urgent implementation, and what are the revisions that can be implemented in the long run? How can we evaluate the effectiveness of these revisions? Proposing adjustments is usually not difficult, but how to measure the impact of those adjustments on the effectiveness of curriculum implementation is still an issue that needs to be carefully considered before any decision is made about a given curriculum. In the last part of the video, we will learn about the relationship between unpacking the components of a curriculum and repacking or reconstructing these components into a curriculum. Unpacking is the process of breaking down a curriculum to gain a deep understanding of each individual component. The unpacking process needs to answer an essential question: what does school personnel need to do to be ready to implement the curriculum? Repacking is reconstructing these disparate components into a comprehensive understanding of the curriculum before implementation. In fact, our teaching process depends not on any single factor, but on the application of all these different components dictated by an overarching understanding of the curriculum. Therefore, in faculty meetings, we can focus on understanding each element, which is the process of unpacking a curriculum. However, when teaching, we need to synthesize and recombine all our understanding of the curriculum so that we can teach students naturally and fluently. The essential question for teachers to answer during the integration process is: are school personnel ready to implement the curriculum? This concludes the training about unpacking the curriculum. If anyone would like to explore this topic further, please consult the following reference materials. Thank you very much for your attention.